Have you ever witnessed a moment that changed everything? You think you get to give orders here, little girl? Sir, she said evenly, we're serving customers in the order they arrived. Please wait for your turn like everyone else. You call that customer service? He snapped, voice rising above the jazz playing softly through the ceiling speakers. I spend more money in this store than all these folks combined. And you have the nerve to disrespect me. A few heads turned. Maya kept her posture composed, though she noticed her hands were starting to tremble. This isn't about money, sir. It's about respect for everyone here. Derek stepped closer, nostrils flaring. Don't you lecture me, little girl. You think standing behind a register gives you power. You don't have the knowledge, the background, or the skin to run a business like this. That last line rang out like a shot. Even the music seemed to falter. Excuse me. Maya's voice dropped half an octave. Calm, yes, but not passive. You heard me, he hissed. A girl like you, what? Some weekend business course online? Mommy and Daddy fund this place? I don't know what kind of diversity stunt this is, but let me tell you, people like me built this economy. Not you. What happens next will shock you. Before Maya could reply, Derek's voice exploded again. You've got no idea what customer service is. No idea what real work means. You're just playing dress up. Nah. Then, as if his words weren't venomous enough, he raised his hand and slapped her across the face. The sound ricocheted off the hardwood floor, stunning the room into dead silence. If you felt connected to Maya's story, give this video a like to show your support. And drop a comment with where you're watching from. BUP Stories. You never know, someone nearby might be watching it, too. Maya staggered a half step back. The pain was instant, but she didn't cry out. She simply touched her cheek where the heat pulsed under her skin and looked him dead in the eye. A woman near the perfume display gasped. A teenage boy whispered. Did he just, sir? Maya said quietly, but with razor clarity. You need to leave this store now. Derek scoffed. Yeah, or what? You'll call your manager. Go ahead. Bring him out. A beat passed. Then another. I am the manager, Maya replied. In fact, I'm the owner. Derek froze. Laughter, sharp, incredulous, bubbled from his lips. You own this place? Don't make me laugh. Behind the counter, a soft chime sounded. One of Maya's employees, Tasha, petite, and steely, stepped forward. The security camera caught the whole thing, she said, holding up a tablet screen. Audio and all. Derek's face paled for the first time. Maya didn't say a word. She turned, headed toward the back office. The room watched her in stunned silence. The door closed behind her. By evening, the video had made its way to Twitter. 30 seconds of footage. Derek's tirade. The slap. Maya's poised response was now looping on 100,000 screens. The store's location was tagged. So was Derek's name. By morning, local news was already knocking. By Monday, one of Derek's business partners, a high-end hospitality chain, announced the termination of their contract with his firm. By Wednesday, his inbox was flooded with calls unanswered, deals suspended, clients lost. His reputation was unraveling by the hour. Thursday morning, he showed up at Urban Grace. He looked smaller now, no longer booming with ego, but instead clutching a crumpled envelope and a face full of regret. Maya spotted him through the security glass. She opened the door slowly. Miss William, he began, voice gravelly. I came to apologize. She said nothing. I didn't know, he added weakly. Who you were. I let my temper get the best of me. You have to understand. I do understand, Maya cut in. You thought you could talk down to someone who looked like me because you assumed I didn't matter. Derek's eyes flinched. I didn't mean you meant every word, she said. He exhaled, wiping his forehead. Look, this is getting out of control. The press, they've twisted everything. My clients are bailing. I just need you to go on record, say it was a misunderstanding. Say we've talked, that you've accepted my apology. Maya stared at him for a long moment. You want me to clean up your mess? She said. I just want to fix it. No, Maya replied. You want me to protect you from consequences? There was silence between them. Mr. Collins, she said, her voice unshakable. Urban grace stands for dignity, for decency. I won't lie to protect someone who tried to humiliate me in public. If your world is falling apart because people saw who you really are, that's not my responsibility. And Derek looked down, hands trembling. If you truly want to make amends, Mia added, start by admitting what you did publicly, not to save your business, but because it's the right thing to do. He didn't reply. Maya turned, pushed the door open wider. You're free to leave now, she said. And this time, he did without another word. Inside, Maya exhaled slowly. Her cheek still bore the memory of the slap, but her spine had never stood straighter. The door clicked shut behind Derek Collins. The sound echoed like a punctuation mark, full, sharp, final. Maya didn't move for a few seconds. She stood near the entrance of Urban Grace, her fingers still curled slightly from the tension. Outside, the morning sun filtered through the windows, painting golden patterns on the oak floor. She closed her eyes. The slap still burned. Not just on her cheek, but deep beneath the skin somewhere older. Raw. It wasn't just about Derek. It never had been. It was about every microaggression she'd brushed off. Every boardroom smirk when she pitched an idea. Every time a supplier called her sweetheart instead of ma'am. Every time she'd been told she was too young, too bold, or too black to own a business in a part of town that still clutched its pearls when a dark-skinned woman wore confidence like silk. Hey, boss. A voice called gently from the back. Tasha, her floor manager, stepped out from the storeroom, holding 2 mugs of coffee. She handed one to Maya. Hazelnut and oat milk. You looked like you needed it. Maya offered a small smile. Thanks. You handled that like a queen, Tasha said, sitting on the arm of the lobby couch. I was ready to call the cops when he came back. I considered it, Maya murmured, sipping slowly. But part of me wanted to hear what he'd say. To see if he understood. Tasha raised an eyebrow. And Mia shook her head. He didn't. Not really. He was here to save face, not his soul. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of recent days settling between them. The boutique had been busier than ever since the video went viral. Messages flooded their inbox. Some supportive, others cruel, strangers sent flowers, some sent threats. Her team was exhausted but motivated. The space felt charged, like something holy and haunted at once. Did you hear about the Lane Group? Tasha asked. Mia nodded. Yeah. They cut ties with him. Tasha grinned. That's poetic. Mia didn't smile back. She looked down at her coffee instead. Tasha, do you think I'm doing the right thing, staying quiet with the press? Tasha blinked. You've said more with silence than some folks do with 10 interviews. But maybe people need to hear more, Mia said softly. Not just about me, but about what this means, what it reflects. That Tasha leaned forward. Then say it on your terms. Before Maya could reply, the bell above the door jingled. A familiar face stepped in, Mrs. Jenkins, dressed in her usual earth-tone shawl, walking cane tapping rhythmically against the tile. Her presence always brought calm, like wind rustling through autumn leaves. Maya, she greeted, her voice warm and wise. I saw him leave. Maya stood. He came to apologize. Mrs. Jenkins raised an eyebrow. And he wanted me to clear his name to the press. A slow sigh left the older woman's lips. She walked over, taking a seat beside Maya. When I was your age, she began. There was a man named Daniel Wright. White, big reputation. He slapped a black teacher at a community meeting because she dared to correct him about school funding. Just like you. She didn't fight back. She stood there, looked him in the eye, and said, "Sir, your ignorance is louder than your hand." Maya blinked. Mrs. Jenkins continued, "He lost his job. But he never apologized. Not really. Years later, he ran into that teacher, retired by then, and asked her for a letter of forgiveness. Not because he meant it, but because he wanted to run for office." Did she give it to him? Mrs. Jenkins smiled faintly. She told him, "Forgiveness is free. But redemption takes work." The three women sat for a moment, soaking in the weight of that memory. Outside, customers wandered past the display windows. Inside, Maya's phone buzzed on the counter. Another media outlet. Another request for comment. Tasha looked toward the phone, then to Maya. "You're going to have to speak eventually. People are listening now." "I know," Maya said. "But I want it to be worth their time." She stood and walked to the register. Behind the counter was a small frame, her mother's photo. Smiling in an apron, flower on her cheek. Maya touched the edge of the frame gently. Her mother had worked 3 jobs, kept every receipt, and dreamed bigger than the space they lived in. She taught Maya that dignity wasn't just what people gave you. It was what you never let them take away. "I'm thinking," Mia said finally, "about hosting a night here in the store. Community, conversation, coffee, not cameras, just people." "A healing circle?" Mrs. Jenkins asked. Maya nodded. "But one that talks about hard things. What we live through, what we endure, what we carry." No, Tasha grinned. "You always think bigger." Maya smiled for the first time that morning. "This isn't about going viral. It's about making space, holding space." Outside, a group of young women walked by, pointing at the storefront and whispering. One of them looked in and made eye contact with Maya. She mouthed, "Thank you." Maya inhaled deeply. The sting on her cheek had dulled, but the memory was there. It would stay, she knew, not as shame, but as evidence, a marker in her journey. Not every battle needed fists. Some required something much harder to summon. Stillness. And from that stillness, a movement could grow. By the following week, the whisper that had begun with a slap had evolved into something far larger. The buzz outside Urban Grace no longer came from the curious or the outraged, it came from the community that had quietly watched for years as voices like Maya's were silenced, softened, or pushed to the edges. Flyers were taped to telephone poles now, neatly designed with minimalist fonts and warm neutral tones. Community gathering, Grace After the Storm, hosted by Maya William at Urban Grace. No cameras, no microphones, just us. The idea had taken root. Within days, it bloomed. On Friday evening, as dusk colored the streets in gold and lavender, the boutique transformed. The racks of handmade jackets and curated accessories were pushed aside. Folding chairs lined the walls. In the center stood a modest circle of cushions, a table of tea, and a box of tissues, just in case. Maya stood at the front, wearing a dark burgundy sweater and jeans. Nothing fancy. Her hair was pulled into a soft bun. There was no podium, no name tag, just her. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady but low as the last guests filed in. There were about 30 people seated. Neighbors, customers, elders, teenagers, small business owners, a school principal, a retired postal worker, black, white, brown. Some sat with arms crossed. Others leaned forward with curiosity. "This space," Maya continued, "isn't for retelling what happened. You saw it. You know. This is about what's been happening, what's still happening, and what we carry because of it." A man near the back cleared his throat. His name was Leonard, a 50-something former factory foreman, white with a lined face and thoughtful eyes. "I saw the video," he said. "At first, I thought maybe it was just some jerk losing his temper, but then I thought about how many times I've walked past stuff like that. Kept my head down, figured it wasn't my place." Maya nodded. "And what changed?" Leonard shifted in his seat. Your silence. After he hit you, you didn't scream. You just stood there. It hit me harder than anything he did. The room was quiet, not tense, reflective. An older woman to the right raised her hand. It was Mrs. Evans, who ran a flower shop 2 blocks over. My husband, she said slowly. Truncated 60,189 characters, placing the box down. Mia leaned back. Sometimes I wonder if people forget I still run a store. Tasha grinned. They haven't forgotten. They just see something more now, someone more. But Maya felt it. The weight of being seen, of being expected to carry momentum without pause, though the worst of Collins's retaliation had passed and new legal protections were in place. A quiet ache had settled in her chest, a yearning not for rest, but for something deeper, rebuilding, not the city, herself. That evening, she closed shop early and walked the long blocks toward the east side of Charlotte, where she'd grown up. It had been years since she'd walked this path, yet her feet remembered every crack in the sidewalk, every porch light that flickered to life as the sun dipped low. She passed the old church where her mother used to sing in the choir and the corner lot that once held a fruit stand, now replaced with a new strip mall. She stopped outside a weathered brick duplex. The stoop was chipped, the mailbox rusted, but the swing still creaked with the breeze. Her fingers grazed the railing and memory flooded back. Late-night sittings here, listening to her mother talk about dignity, about not letting the world define your worth. Her mother's voice always low but full of certainty. She sat on the swing. For a while, she said nothing. She just listened to the wind, the sounds of tires on distant pavement, the hum of the city that shaped her. She thought of every name that hadn't made headlines. Women who had whispered their pain in private. Girls who had walked away instead of speaking up. Elders who had chosen silence because survival required it. Then she remembered something her mother used to say. Silence can be healing, but only if it's yours. That night, Maya returned home and began writing, not a speech, not a blog post, not even a public letter, just a journal entry, a raw, unfiltered conversation with herself. I've become a symbol. That's beautiful and terrifying. But I'm still me. A woman who runs a store. A woman who mourns things she can't name. A woman who's learning that even after truth wins, healing takes longer. And that's okay. She wrote until her hand cramped. And then she slept deeply without interruption. The next morning, she arrived at Urban Grace with a new resolve. She greeted each customer, not with the weight of representation, but with the ease of community. When a mother asked if her teenage daughter could volunteer at the shop for a school project, Maya said yes without hesitation. When an elderly man came in searching for a gift for his late wife's birthday, Maya helped him pick out a lavender scarf and wrapped it with a note card. She's still with you. Later that week, she met with Charles Bennett over lunch at a small soul food diner tucked between 2 faded storefronts. They sat at the window booth, plates of catfish and collard greens before them. I've been thinking, Maya said between bites, about starting something smaller, more local, a speaker series here in Charlotte, not just about justice, but about joy, about identity, community, healing. Charles smiled. You've already started it. Now you just need to give it a name. She laughed lightly. Maybe something like Grace Notes. Perfect, he said. Short, strong, yours. As the weeks rolled on, Maya's days began to take new shape. Morning walks, boutique hours, weekend community circles. She didn't stop speaking, but she stopped chasing the noise. She chose conversations over campaigns. Listening over limelight. Urban Grace remained a boutique, yes, but also a sanctuary. On the front door beneath the hours of operation, she placed a new sign. Come in, be seen, be heard. But, and slowly, Maya found herself not in the center of a storm, but standing at its edge, hands open, voice steady, heart full. Not done, but whole. Morning light filtered into Urban Grace, weaving golden threads across the wooden floor. The boutique was quiet, just the familiar hum of the city beyond, and the scent of freshly brewed tea wafting from the back. Maya paused in the doorway, breathing in the calm, as if readying herself for what came next. The boutique, once simply a storefront, had transformed. It thrummed with quiet possibility. Today, however, held a new energy. Rosa and Tasha stood beside a neat stack of hand-lettered invitations, their eyes bright with anticipation. "What's today?" Maya asked softly. Tasha lifted one envelope. "Grace Notes number 1. Your first community speaker series starts tonight." Grace Notes. Maya liked how it sounded. An echo of the movement she'd sparked, but softer, more soulful. A space to mend, connect, imagine, not just confront. By evening, folding chairs lined the perimeter of the shop. Soft string lights twinkled overhead. Lavender-scented candles flickered on a long table at the front. It was part salon, part sanctuary. Today's first speaker was Lorraine, the woman who had quietly thanked Maya for standing all those weeks ago. Lorraine emerged, hands trembling with nerves and hope. "Thank you for having me," she began, her voice low at first, then steadied by conviction. She spoke of her years working under Derek Collins before his firm's reputation overshadowed her integrity. How she'd stayed silent to survive, to keep her job, and how now she could no longer let silence define her. When she finished, the room was still, an embrace of empathy filling the space. Next, Rosa spoke, not to recite the fight, but to share how Grace Notes had helped her find solace, identity, and purpose in storytelling. Her voice caught only once when she thanked Maya for teaching her that strength could be quiet. Other voices joined, a teacher, a small business owner, a young activist. Stories unraveled in whispers and calm melodies. Each note weaving into the next until they formed a tapestry, subtle, rich, alive. Later, as the final guest drifted away and chairs were folded, Maya stayed behind alone, the scent of jasmine lingering. She opened her notebook. She wrote, "This is where resistance becomes healing. Where voices aren't just raised, they resonate. Grace is not what we give. It's what we remember. And in memory, we find the courage to live whole." Days passed and Grace Notes grew. Each evening carried a different flavor. Poetry one night, music another. A counselor hosted a circle on grief. A retired journalist held a session on what it meant to speak truth. Maya watched neighbors, old and young, black and white, gather and breathe together. Meanwhile, the UPAPA bill, her imagined turning of North Carolina's anti-SLAPP law into reality, had faded from the public spotlight, but not from practice. Collins's firm had disbanded. The federal inquiry continued quietly, and the legal system began to feel its tremors even in a state so slow to change. On a Thursday afternoon, Detective Angela Pearson walked in again, not in uniform this time, but with a stack of letters. "People have asked me to pass these on if that's okay," she said. Stories of thanks, of clarity, of moved hearts. Maya accepted them, teary-eyed. The letters were simple. "You helped me tell my truth. I didn't know what I believed until you spoke it aloud. I'm teaching my daughter she doesn't need to be quiet." Mike, she folded them gently and placed them in a jar labeled Echoes. In the weeks that followed, Maya expanded Grace Notes into a monthly event in local libraries and churches. She trained volunteers to help survivors tell their stories through writing, art, conversation. A modest grant from a social justice coalition arrived. Enough to fund the series for the year. At home one evening, Maya closed her eyes and recited the words she'd shared at the women's conference. "Truth doesn't shake under pressure. It holds." It had become a mantra, a foundation under her feet. The next morning, she unlocked Urban Grace. The chalk messages outside had been rearranged by neighbors. "Grace echoes here, and we stand on your strength." Maya let the door swing open, sunlight spilling in. She flipped the sign to open, picked up a lavender-scented candle, and placed it gently on the counter beside her mother's framed photo. Because the storm had changed her life, but Grace Notes were changing the hearts of a city, one soft note at a time. The late afternoon sky above Charlotte had a soft lavender glow, as if echoing the candles that flickered gently within Urban Grace. Maya stood behind the counter, guiding a customer through the selection of scarves when she noticed a young woman hesitating by the entrance. Thin arms wrapped around herself in modest armor. She looked unsure but drawn. Maya excused herself and stepped forward, removing her glasses and smiling softly. "Hey there," she said, voice kind. "Take your time. We're here." The woman nodded, blinking rapidly. I saw your grace note sign out front," she whispered. "I didn't expect." Maya guided her toward a chair by the window, helping her settle before offering tea. The woman's hands trembled as she accepted the cup. "I've been silent," she confessed. "My boss, he harassed me at my job, not physical, but every day until I couldn't stand it. I resigned, but I never told anyone. I felt ashamed." She exhaled, a small tremor in her voice. "I thought I was weak. But I came here because maybe you'd understand." Maya nodded, handing her a tissue. "You're not weak. You survived. And telling it doesn't diminish you. It honors you." She sat beside her. "Whatever you say in your time, we'll listen. No judgment." The woman's shoulders relaxed. Her eyes filled with cautious relief. "Thank you," she said softly. I needed someone to hold my voice for me when I didn't have it." At that moment, laughter echoed from the back of the store. Maya glanced over and saw Leonard, formerly quiet, forever changed, helping unpack a shipment of notebooks embossed with the phrase grace notes. "When silence speaks, they arrived last night," he said, gently placing the stack on a nearby shelf. "We're selling them. Each one funds the series." The store felt alive, like the gentle thrum of a choir tuning their voices before they sang. As evening settled, the bell jingled again. This time, a group of middle school educators entered, holding lesson plans and freshly painted posters. They had come to ask if Grace Notes could visit their schools. Maya welcomed them with warmth, pressing lavender soap and tea into their hands. She nodded as they shared how their students needed language for their stories, how they needed permission to be seen. By closing time, Maya felt a familiar ache. Not tired, but brimming. She walked around the boutique, touching the candles, the books, the handwritten notes still pinned to the wall. "Your story matters. I believe you. Grace will catch me when I fall." These weren't just relics. They were testaments. She locked the door and stepped outside into the quiet of dusk. The sidewalk glowed under street lamps. Somewhere nearby, a child called her mother. Somewhere else, laughter rolled up from a porch. The world was soft around the edges, as if held in a breath. She opened her bag and pulled out her notebook. On the page, she wrote, "Grace isn't just what saves us. It's what invites us forward. It's a whisper that makes the quietest voices resonate." As she wrote, she thought of the woman who just shared her pain, of the children whose teachers now had permission to teach about truth and courage, of herself, once silenced, now stewarding a song of many voices. The night deepened, but Maya stood there still, open, offering space not just for stories, but for healing. And in the hush of the street, her silence spoke louder than it ever could in words. Because sometimes bravery isn't in speaking loudly. It's in creating a place where even whispers can soar. Urban Grace closed for the night, but its echoes carried on long after the lights dimmed, through hearts, through streets, through lives changed by the grace found when silence finally speaks. BUP Stories. Maya's story reminds us that justice isn't always loud, and power doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it lives in the quiet courage of a woman who chooses to stand when others stay seated. Her journey teaches us that speaking up, even when your voice trembles, can transform not just a moment but an entire community. True strength lies not in overpowering others but in making space for their voices. And in a world that often silences the vulnerable, creating room for truth is the most radical grace of all.